Um, I'll start kind of with a general question for all of the panelists. Do you have any recommendations for what local governments can do to encourage and support decarbonation of commercial buildings and augment the work that you all are doing?
I'll chime in. I used to work at a local government, so I feel like I deeply understand kind of both sides of this. In fact, I did all of the building permitting, and everyone used to tell me that it was always so hard and complicated and never the same anywhere. And I didn't really understand that until I started working for a developer. I think there's a lot to be said for education and engagement, just like sessions today. Until you know your end user, no matter what industry you're talking about, you're probably not going to really meet their needs. And so I think, especially owners that are having challenges, I think, reaching out and kind of raising those is probably the best way to get your needs met, even if you do have a tricky project.
I could chime in. I'd say that, one thing that's moved the needle quite a bit, and, if you ask a lot of the owners, they may not be so happy about this, is the requirements around both disclosure and performance standards. So that has really moved the industry to pay more attention, say, look, this thing is coming. We have a long lead time to plan for it. The equipment we're replacing lasts a long time. Let's do the right thing. All those things are good. The flip side of that is having 20 different versions of regulation that, so JLL might manage a portfolio for an owner from a property standpoint and just have to figure out for each one, how do we actually even get the data? Will the tenants respond or not? If not, can I get it from somewhere else? It's just like a lot to figure out for each one from a compliance standpoint. Now, I know not all local governments can coordinate on that, but it's a great thing to send the signal. Will be even better to sort of map back to make it easier for owners to comply and make the right decision. Because even once they get to that, so then they're going to go and get a permit, and that'll have a new set of challenges for a permit for heat pumps, and that'll trigger some other requirement, and really trying to consolidate all the things that might happen and think through what we want the owners to do, I think is the flip side of it. But I would say the data disclosure, sharing, benchmarking, and then the performance standards have done a lot to move the needle for the industry.
And I will just tell y'all that from the field, I joke like you can run, but you can't hide. It might even be a lender that one of your tenants has, or an investor that one of your tenants has. I've started to get surveys asking very, very specific questions. And so I think on the owner side, it just behooves us to be ready for those.
Great. Mentioning, actually, Becca mentioning lending, this question kind of was posed towards Brenden, but if anyone feel free to chime in, given the challenges in the marketplace that Brenden outlined, what is kind of the role of financing as you see it in the market as of now? Rates are currently high. PG&E is offering 0% for energy savings products. Do those financing options help to move the needle at all that you're seeing in the field?
I'd love to hear from somebody that sees more projects than I do. I know that we're kicking the tires on it and, really looking seriously at all of the options. It's very project dependent, of course, but I'm curious what some of y'all are seeing.
Yeah, I mean, I think on-bill financing is a great tool. It's 0%. It's off balance sheet, so a lot of folks like it as an option. And then their energy service agreements are a lot of different ways to kind of skin the cat. And you can bundle in energy efficiency with a higher cost decarbonization project and sort of buy the project down. The payback will come into a 15-year, 20-year time range versus looking at them separately. So a lot of different options. And then there's the Section 179D tax deduction. There's some potential for the investment tax credit to apply. If you're looking at thermal energy storage, with a 30% credit there as well. So a lot of different opportunities and a lot of different options. The key is just to identify the roadmap and put it all together in one spot so you can kind of pick and choose and have a big menu.
I think that's right. The only thing I'd add there is that just the macro market weirdness complicates everything. So 5 years ago, money was essentially cheaper free. PACE was not interesting because I could get debt at cheaper rates than PACE. Well, now that's inverted and PACE is cheaper than mezz debt in a lot of cases, but it's new and it's different and not all lenders like it. So if you think of just an office as an example in San Francisco, it might be worth half, might be worth a quarter what it was 2 years ago. So the question a lot of owners are asking is, when do I walk away from the building and hand it back to the lender? So even if there is financing available, there's like 6 other problems they have to solve before even getting to the question of like, is there an interest rate that's compelling to me? So I think the interest rate environment certainly hurts the effort overall, but the flip side of that is that when that pain kind of gets realized, someone else will buy a building at a much lower cost basis. And then there's actually a ton of opportunity to fix it up. But if you're not sure if you're actually going to continue paying the mortgage, I think there's a kind of a freezing of the market right now that's irrespective of what you would see with the debt rate.
Great, thank you all. Wanted to follow up with Raul too on one of the previous questions. Are there actions that local government staff, and I'm particularly interested in this too, and I know it varies from CCA to CCA, but are there actions that local governments can take to partner with their local CCA that you see, working on in the field as well, and help outreach to businesses to benefit from these rebates and technical assistance that you offer or other CCAs are offering?
Yeah, I mean, we have a great team on our program side of the house that does do a lot of work with local with local cities that we service, to just talk a little bit more about the programs that we offer. So we're always in contact with them just about sharing the resources. I mean, we have a weekly what we call our MOG log that we send out on a weekly basis to different agencies and within our service territory that talk about just all the programs, not specifically this one, but just everything in general. And if people have specific questions about just the program in general, we make ourselves available via email and phone just to have those conversations about what it is we offer. If a customer in their service territory maybe has a specific question, we leave ourselves available to make sure that we answer those questions that they have. So yeah, we're I think not tooting our own horn, but I think we do a great job at making sure that we're always in contact with our local cities, just in case they have any questions. And if people don't know like how our how CCAs work, a lot of them are governed by a board, which are made up of different council members from different cities that we service. So we're, like I said, I mean, right now we're in this, especially for the SMB program, we're going to start working with some of our our board members to get into the communities and chat to more business owners that way. So like I said, it's always like a collaboration between us and our board to make sure that we're getting this information out.
Great. Can you touch quickly?
Extend that? Sorry, Ryan.
Ahead,
Can we extend that same question to you, Cara? So, I mean, BayREN is a local government run program, but are cities within counties around the Bay Area able to bring you bodegas or otherwise to help you line up customers?
Yeah, definitely. I think local governments have a unique connection to their community. They are someone that the local businesses pay attention to. So getting a communication from the local government on letterhead from that city can help raise awareness about the program. Street campaigns are really effective. Just small businesses tend to be so busy running their business, they're not, paying attention to the email newsletter. So if you have a chance to walk around the downtown or, target certain stores in your jurisdiction who you think are good candidates, that face-to-face contact can really move interest. And then I think it's also really important, like city governments know their communities very well. Your local chamber of commerce, the local community organizations that work with businesses. So sharing this program and other programs to those trusted messengers who can help get the word out locally is a really great strategy, and we've seen that be very successful. For example, in Solano County this year, they were working very closely with some of their chambers of commerce.
Yeah, this is open-ended, but kind of focused on Justin, Raul, and Cara as well. We've heard a lot about kind of larger campuses and large projects today as well, but could you speak to buildings kind of maybe in that medium range, the 10 to 60,000 square foot? One participant in the forum today reported consistent 20% reductions in energy by upgrading building management systems. And SVCE today mentioned that there are 6,800 package RTUs in the territory alone, providing the opportunity for those medium businesses. You can touch on those.
Yeah, I think it's a huge opportunity, and in some cases a lot easier to do. If you're talking about rooftop package units, you're just swapping out heat pumps and controls. I can't speak enough about the importance of controls and having them in place and being able to monitor, have a system to monitor and kind of make sure that everything's working like it should. That's where a significant amount of efficiency is going to come across any property type.
Yeah, and just to kind of, like I said, add back to that, I mean, when we did that study, we, our programs lead like to refer to it as that like low hanging fruit, right? That swap, being able to take advantage of being able to install in those areas that we've identified. So it's definitely like I said, I definitely think from the marketing standpoint of things, it's super hard to really like make sure that this information is getting to the right person. But nonetheless, like I said, doing that research and kind of figuring out like, who what exactly their setup is, how we're being able to offer more catered service, I think has been super beneficial in getting, more interest into the program, and being able to, present this information as well to them is super key.
The other thing I wanted to add when I saw that question come through is that 20% doesn't get us where we need to go. So it is true that there's low-hanging fruit all over the place. We see it all the time. Like you would think all the lights have been converted, but they haven't. At the same time, when we model out what the actual emissions reductions are, we're fortunate enough to be here in the Bay Area in a relatively mild climate. And even here, once that 20% is picked, it gets a lot tougher really quickly to go deeper and deeper. So certainly correct that there's a lot of mom and pop, a lot of long tail of smaller buildings that need assistance, and it's going to be a challenge. Picking that 20%, we absolutely should be doing it. It also gets a lot more challenging after that.
And for Becca and for anyone as well, have you encountered barriers or challenges in navigating California Energy Code, local energy codes? Can you touch on those? What could be better, maybe?
Typically things float up to me if the design team is having a really hard time with it. And I think it comes into kind of who your ecosystems of friends and service providers are. I have a lot of them on this call, for example. But we did have some problems, particularly when we were doing some battery storage. And it was just one example. We did some battery storage at another property on the Embarcadero, and we ran into some fire inspector things specific to the Port of San Francisco. I've heard a lot of stories from the field like that. But again, we were able to work through it with our design professionals, and it was okay in the end.
Great, thanks. This one was for Justin. Are businesses and building owners, they've been open to your discussion of common myths? Are they receptive to those, and how has those conversations gone? How has the knowledge and those conversations helped you in your work?
Yeah, I think it's when you put dollars and cents to it, and data behind it, it makes the conversation a lot easier. you know, just to say that, well, you probably don't have to upgrade your electric service if you do it right, you know, doesn't really move the needle. But if you can kind of show, okay, we looked at 10 years of data, this is your max demand, you know, here's the amount of room you have in your service, or, you know, the size of your boiler, you know, it's hard to argue with those numbers. So yeah, it really helps. And there are edge cases for sure, but definitely most of the time you can make it work with what's there.
Are you applying a standardized process, Justin? I mean, you made it very clean sounding, but just that assessment of your actuals in terms of gas consumption, efficiency improvement, and then designing against the heat pump. That it sounds like something that could be systematic, and yet it seems to be that was a pretty unique slide, I'd say. So could that be made systematic?
Yeah, every building's a bit of a snowflake. So, but the key is to have a structure that you can take and, you know, get whatever data is available, take it and apply it to that process and be able to identify, you know, where the resources are, where the constraints are, you know, be able to design around all of that. You know, what's the holding period? You know, what kind of data is involved? There are a lot of different components and moving parts. But the key is, yeah, having a process that you can apply and then being able to guide the conversation toward what's important, what's going to provide value to clients.
Great. Cara and Raul, could you touch on the funding structures of the programs that you highlighted? If there are any conflicts of interest, utilizing public funded rebate opportunities or incentives, or if there are any constraints that you have regarding the funding sources?
Yeah. I saw that question in the chat too from Christine. I had written her privately, but yeah, our rebates are funded by our own revenues. So it's part of the way we reinvest back into our communities as a nonprofit organization, or a not-for-profit organization. But our customers are still eligible to participate in CPUC / state-funded programs too. I think the only exclusion for not being able to participate in more than one program is limited to demand response programs, such as like our grid shift program and competing or similar service offers through PG&E as well. So, but yeah, it's pretty much funded through it's all funded through our own revenues.
Yeah, the BayREN business program is funded through state ratepayer funds through the California Public Utilities Commission. So there's no double dipping. So that's when like you apply for the same funding for the same measure within a certain time period. But for example, our funding could be paired with Silicon Valley Clean Energy's funding if it's non-state ratepayer funds to kind of leverage a bigger project and provide more incentives. So if there are CCAs out there who are running their own programs that have their own funding for these types of electrification projects or EE projects, we can stack together, but we can't, for example, pair like a PG&E program and a BayREN business together.
Great. Thanks for elaborating. Becca, do you have any lessons learned? I'm sure you might have a large handful of them from Levi's Plaza that other decision makers or can benefit from.
Yeah, I mean, I think these points have already been kind of driven home, but I think going in with as much knowledge and information as you have and keeping that organized really prepares you for whatever inevitable dynamic things might happen. You know, at Levi's Plaza, you know, between COVID, you know, leasing things, other market considerations, certainly interest rates, there's been a ton of changes since we kind of made our initial plan. And we've been able to accommodate those because we were ready, because we had kind of a plan A, B, C. The other thing, and I don't know that I've said it today, so I'll make sure I'm clear. In some of our markets, we have very easily identified cost for not meeting a certain building performance standard. So I also think, you know, really focusing on the cost of non-action whether that's for you as an owner today or for when you go to try and sell this building in, 1, 3, 5, 10 years. That's really how I've approached this work. And then, really just relying on the on-the-ground teams. They know a ton about the buildings, and, really kind of customizing a plan for each asset. And then, of course, my job is to roll that up portfolio wide and kind of talk about it on behalf of the whole business. So it's a lot of collaboration, but I think keeping your information organized and, tapping the right providers to help you figure it out and execute is really the only thing you can do.
Thank you. And Raul, could you speak a bit more on kind of the process that you've gone through with the public outreach to businesses? Have there been any instances where, this is kind of a specific occurrence, but if there were any times where you spoke to business that was located at a particular building, and they were interested, the business owner, but the building owner was not necessarily interested. And I guess I'll pose that to Cara as well.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think, before we started doing more of this like targeted outreach effort, where we were making phone calls and actually going into like the business areas and going into businesses, just presenting them the information. We did get a few instances where people were like interested and were like, okay, well, what can I do as a business owner? I don't own the building, but like, how can I facilitate this between the property owner or property manager? So we got a lot of those. So I definitely think that there's interest from the actual business owners themselves to make these changes. It's just like I said, the getting the property manager or business owner to do it is the next step, right? So definitely I feel like, us being able to make these calls and, maybe directly, I knew we had an instance too where somebody was interested in it, who put us in contact with the property manager. So it was kind of just like being able to talk to them directly. So it's like levels, but which could be like a little bit of a drop off sometimes, or, maybe after that, they're kind of like, oh, well, this maybe is too much of a long process. But I definitely think like our team has been really great at being tedious with the process and being always trying to drive it forward so that we could make more people within our service territory, especially business owners, get the appliances that they want. So yeah, it's been a process, but like I said, nonetheless, one that we've been doing a lot of learning from.
Yeah, we work primarily, like I mentioned, we're targeting kind of a very specific group of businesses, these hard to reach businesses, and most of them do tend to be tenants rather than owning their building. So I do think that can influence like the types of projects that get done. It tends to be things that the tenant can say yes to, but they can bring in the business owner or the building owner if they need to get approval for like a scope of work that really affects the building and they need sign off on. That generally happens through the contractor. It's a contractor-driven program, so the contractor is working with all the interested parties to get that approval to go ahead with the project.
Great, thanks. And we're at 11:55. I'll do one more question, Barry, if there's time for it, and then we'll have closing remarks. And this question's for all panelists. I asked earlier about actions or recommendations that you would have for local governments for how we can support decarb of commercial buildings. Could all panelists provide any your top advice for building owners specifically? And we got a question, for example, a large nonprofit with several employees, thousands plus employees, and a dozen more aging facilities, and how they can decarbonize their buildings.
I might sound like a broken record here, but I would say get your data organized. You're going to need the same stuff no matter who you talk to. And as you kind of shop these projects around and put a plan together, you're going to want to have everything collected and clear. So I think you've got to start somewhere. That's the best place if you don't have that already.
Yeah, I think for code folks, education, talking about, what's what's legal, what's not, just simple things, educating HVAC contractors, building owners, tenants, really getting the word out and kind of make it a prescriptive pathway to show, what is likely doable, and just have a roadmap that kind of allows people to understand, okay, this is a huge thing to take on. It's going to take time, and here are some of the phases and steps we might go through.
Awesome. Thank you, and I'll turn it back to Barry.
Well, fantastic. Well, thank you very much, Ryan, Justin, Becca, Raul, Cara, and Brenden. Really appreciate it. That was a rich conversation, and appreciate learning from you all today. As we've mentioned, we'll be posting slides shortly, as well as audio and video of the event. Now, before you depart, we do ask that you fill out our survey. It helps us justify the funding for the program, and it helps you qualify for possibly winning a prize. Really cool solar phone charger, which is excellent if you like camping. You can use the QR code on the screen or the link in the chat to get to the survey. And we really appreciate your time and your thoughts today. Thank you very much.